Hello everyone, I'm Walter and this is the Film Hermit channel, and I decided today to do a video about physical media formats. Now, if you go on to YouTube, you'll see thousands of videos describing what each format is and so forth, but since I'm just starting my channel, my audience is much smaller, I figure I'll give you guys a quick reference to physical formats, like what the difference is. Believe it or not, a lot of people tell me they don't know the differences between the formats or why they're even important. For example, I had a coworker tell me once that movies are free. Why would anyone ever buy a movie? So I just want to set this up by saying, number one, movies are not free. Movies cost millions of dollars to make. So if you basically download a movie for free, that's essentially stealing. And believe it or not, not everyone makes the same money as like Chris Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr. in the movie industry. There are people that work in the movie industry that make less money than you do. So just keep that in mind if you are downloading movies illegally. So one of the main things that I want to talk about first is streaming. That's the number one thing a lot of people know about how to watch movies at home. That's basically just going to a streaming service like Netflix, Vudu, or Hulu. Basically, you watch a movie from the internet. Now, it's come a long way over the last few years, and there's a lot of exclusive content that are on streaming services, and I do have streaming services a lot because of the exclusive content. But one thing to keep in mind about streaming services is it's tied to your internet service provider. So depending on how well your internet is working on that day, or in general, it's going to affect the quality, or if you have access at all. For example, last year my internet went down for close to 2 months. And the main reason why was because someone was digging, cut a wire, and there was an argument about who was going to pay for it. And if I had a collection that was exclusively physical, I wouldn't have any access to any of my movies for 2 months. And that's just completely ridiculous for me. So one of the main reasons, of course, I think the physical is better because you have access whenever you want. Another topic that lots of other people have covered on YouTube is how things can change with digital copies. For example, Toy Story 2 was recently edited for its digital version because there was a scene they thought that was inappropriate for children. I know, there's a scene in Toy Story that now they think is inappropriate for children. So it was actually cut out of the digital version. It was actually cut out of the new releases of the physical version that came out. So unless you had the original physical version of Toy Story 2, that scene is just gone forever, like it never existed. So I'm going to talk about the three formats that are currently available. The formats like Laserdisc and VHS, they're no longer, readily available. They don't put new movies on them, so I'll talk about them in a different video. So these are strictly the formats that you can go to a store now and buy. So I was trying to look for a film that I had in all three formats, which is rare because usually if I get the new format, I get rid of the other one, but it all depends title by title. So first off, let me grab it. Let's see here. So this is the King Kong from 2005. Let me get it closer here to the camera so you can take a look at it. So that's the front and that's the back. So this is a film by Peter Jackson, which I saw back in 2005, and I picked up the DVD when it came out. So DVDs, they have a resolution of about 720 by 480. So that's called standard definition, basically. Basically, it's the same quality you got on the old style televisions that were like square TVs. DVDs came out shortly after Laserdiscs did, because it was the first format to be able to put a film on all one disc. So I'm going to slide it out of the slipcover, and you can just take a look and see what it looks like. So this edition here had 2 discs. It had the standard disc for the movie, and it had a bonus disc for the bonus features. So one thing about this particular release was that there were so many bonus features for King Kong. They actually released the bonus features while the movie was still in theaters. It was a special box set, and it was only on DVD. It was kind of expensive at the time. I ended up not getting it because I didn't see the point of spending money for something that was just bonus features. And I'm glad I didn't get it because when the Blu-ray came out, they actually put all those features on the Blu-ray. So let me grab a copy of the Blu-ray. So Blu-ray, this is the Blu-ray of King Kong. So the Blu-ray resolution is about 1920 by 1080. So a lot of people refer to Blu-ray as being 2K. So when high definition televisions came out, they needed something that was gonna meet the resolution requirements of that spec. So the main thing that you'll see different with Blu-rays is that they have better image quality. They look a lot better than DVDs. There's more detail in the picture, and the sound is better as well. So you get soundtracks. You did have like Dolby Digital soundtracks on DVDs, but these tend to have more higher resolution soundtracks that are less compressed, less digital. They're clearer. So when you step into the Blu-ray arena, this is more for collectors and like home theater enthusiasts that really like Blu-ray because they're watching things on larger screens and so forth. Funny story. I actually went on a date with a girl once, and one of the things that she bragged about was how she didn't have anything connected to her television. Maybe that was a sign that it wasn't going to work out. But I want to say, if you do want to watch a DVD or a Blu-ray disc, you do need a player. So pretty much all of the game formats, the last year's generation of game formats like the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, they will play DVDs and they will play Blu-rays. So if you don't have a standard player and you have one of those game systems that has a disc drive, you can play those formats. So also another thing is that the bigger screen that you have, the better you're gonna see more of the detail of the higher resolution discs. It's funny, I knew another girl that basically hated large screen TVs, like hated them. Like I remember, I don't know how the subject came up. We were having a conversation, and the idea of a TV that was larger than 40 inches just disgusted her, and she just seemed like she just got upset by disgusting, like it offended her. And just, it always stands out in my mind because it was just really funny. But again, I want to point out the larger TV that you have, the more that you're going to see the detail. So another thing I want to point out about Blu-rays is, as you can see, I'm going to take it out of my plastic protector here. This has a slip cover. So slip covers tend to, let me get closer to the camera without the glare. Slip covers tend to come out when the movie first comes out on physical media. And as they sell more copies, they stop making the slip cover. So a lot of collectors want to get the movie when it first comes out so they can get the slip cover. And this is something that they call a lenticular slip cover, which basically means it's one of those little lenticular copies that basically, if you turn around, the image slightly changes to the eye. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. But usually the first few runs of the disc will have this, and then it's gone. It's actually gotten to the point where people are actually just selling slip covers on eBay. Because a lot of people are trying to get slip covers that they never got. And it's really random, because sometimes I'll buy a movie on Amazon and I'll pre-order it and I'll get the slip cover, and then sometimes I'll order it and it's like the first day that it's out and I don't get the slip cover. And then I've ordered movies 3-4 years after they've been released on Blu-ray, and all of a sudden it shows up a slip cover and I'm in shock. So it's completely random if you'll get one or not. A lot of times the best way to get one is going to be going to a store, but right now when it comes to like the main retailers, Walmart, Target, Best Buy, their selection of movies has been getting smaller and smaller over the years. So a lot of times it's hard to find stuff that you want. So this is what the inside looks like. So this one has a Blu-ray for the movie that has the higher resolution copy. Also, one nice thing about this copy of King Kong is that it actually has both versions of the film. It has the theatrical cut and the extended cut, which is another thing that gets lost with streaming services. I've been watching a lot of video reactions on YouTube. It's really interesting to watch people watch films for the very first time. But the majority of them, since they didn't see the film when it came out of the theater, they aren't aware if there are different copies of the film or if the other copies are better. They just go to whatever streaming service they have, see the movie, and they start playing it. And a lot of times it can be frustrating because it's like, sometimes they'll say that there's certain things about the movie they didn't like, and then I'm watching the video reaction like, well, if you watched the other version, you would have saw that that was fixed. A lot of times with movies, sometimes the movie's kind of long and they take things out of the movie because they want to get the theatrical run as short as possible. And then sometimes when it comes on home video, they put the longer version there because they know people are at home, they have more time and more time to invest in the film. The director's cut is not always better. It's a case-by-case basis, but one thing that's bad about streaming is sometimes people never know that other copy exists. So one thing I want to point out about DVD that is real important, even though that this has the lowest resolution of all the formats, DVD is still the #1 selling of all 3 formats. And part of the reason why is price. People like to get into DVD because they can get into it cheap. A lot of DVDs they can find at Goodwill. They can find sometimes at pawn shops. People get streaming services and they just take all their DVDs and they just dump them. And sometimes you can get DVDs for really good deals. But again, sometimes you can get Blu-rays for really good deals too. And this is a strange phenomenon that you can check out yourself. A lot of times on Amazon, the DVD for a movie will be more expensive than the Blu-ray. Like, you'll see DVDs on Amazon for like $60. And then you'll look up the 4K version of the same movie and it's like $30. It makes zero sense. But that's the case. I think Amazon does that because they know that DVD is the #1 selling format and they want to push people into using their streaming service to watch the movie than buying the DVD. So they mark up the DVDs more, thinking if someone's going to buy a physical copy, they're going to look for that first, see it's expensive, and then just buy our copy instead. But again, that's my speculation. I don't know if that's the case. So one thing you might want to be asking, well, if there's two other formats that are better than DVD, why still have DVDs? Why are DVDs still useful? So first off, like, more people like to get into it because sometimes it can be cheaper because they can find it like pawn shops and so forth. I tend to keep DVDs for certain titles that you can't get on Blu-ray yet, or certain titles that'll never be on Blu-ray. For example, there are certain television shows that basically came out so long ago that the original masters are completely lost. So they can't put them on 8 high definition discs or Blu-ray because it won't look any better than the DVD. Like, for example, let me grab it here. Guys may remember this show from the 80s. This is the Voltron DVD box set. So this is the Vehicle Voltron DVD box set. And it came in 3 volumes, which were really nice sets. They have the Air Vehicle set, which has a picture of the leader of that team on the back. And then they had the Land set, which had their leader on the back. Let me get a little closer there. And had the Sea team with their leader in the back. The main reason I wanted to show these off is when these came out, I mean, I wasn't that interested in grabbing them. I didn't think they'd go away. Plus, I don't really watch cartoons much anymore. I take that back, I do watch cartoons. But I wasn't that interested in a cartoon I watched when I was a little kid. At least not right away. But my point is, when I decided to just pick them up before they were all gone, I had the worst trouble trying to find this disc. Now, at most, when this came out, it was probably $40. For some reason, this volume became rare and sells on eBay sometimes for $200. Completely ridiculous. I couldn't find a copy anywhere. No online retailer I went to had it. It was really frustrating. Just last year, they did a box set that finally had all the episodes in there. It was like a bare bones, just a universal DVD set that just had discs in there only. But I still wanted this to complete the set. Now, I got these other 2 for like real cheap. I went to like FYE, I think one was like $8, the other one was like $9. But sometimes that happens with DVD sets. Like, they hold their value because when they initially made them, they made less of a certain one and they become rare and then people want to take advantage of it. So DVD can still be good for those titles that you can't get on Blu-ray, and it can be good for titles that or favorites when you're small and you still want to have a copy of them. You still want to be able to watch them when you want to. So now we're going to move on to the premiere format, the format that is the best format out right now, which is 4K. Let me just grab that here. This is the 4K copy of King Kong. So a lot of you are like, I hear a lot about 4K, I have a 4K38 What is 4K? Just to not get too technical, and I will go over the resolution. The resolution for 4K, it's 3840 by 2160. It's 4,000 lines of resolution from top to bottom of your screen. So it looks better. It looks better than HD, it looks better than high definition. So it's probably it's definitely the best format we ever had at home. A lot of times when I'm running a 4K movie on my projector, if it's a good copy of the movie, it looks real close to what I would see at the theater. So someone that's a big home theater enthusiast, it's a really nice format to have. But again, if you have a TV that's 50 inches or smaller, you're not going to see a significant difference. So one thing I want to point out, that when you see these discs at the store, you'll see HDR. That stands for high dynamic range. So one thing that the 4K discs have over the high definition discs is that they have high dynamic range when it comes to color. So they have deeper blacks, deeper colors overall that make the picture stand out more than any resolution from before. So that's one thing that the filmmakers can tweak to give more quality and detail to the films. So if you're running these movies on a 4K display, on a large display like a projector display, you're gonna see much more detail and resolution than you would ever get from any other format. Now, can you get 4K in streaming? Yes, you can. Just a lot of times when you're running 4K via streaming, like I've said before, you're kind of a victim to how your ISP provider is working. So a lot of times you can get a lot more compression. Like for example, there's a lot of movies that have been coming on HBO Max this year. They were premiering on HBO Max the same day they go to theaters. When I picked those movies up on physical discs a few months later and watched them again, it's like night and day. There's so much, even though I watched it in 4K on HBO Max, when I watch it on a 4K disc, it's like you're seeing a completely different movie in a lot of ways. Like for example, Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, which we thought we were never gonna get ever. I just got a copy of that on physical disc, and it was amazing to see on 4K disc versus the streaming copy. So here is an image of the disc, the 4K disc for King Kong. And one thing I didn't point out also is that when you get 4K discs, a lot of times you'll get the Blu-ray disc too. There's a few exceptions, but for 95% of the time you'll get a Blu-ray and you'll get a 4K. So a lot of times, if you want to get into physical media, it makes sense to buy the 4K. Because if you don't have a 4K player yet, you can watch the Blu-ray until you upgrade. And sometimes the price difference between Blu-ray and 4K isn't that much. So it's worth paying the extra dollars just to have your collection be future-proof. I see some people online, they're starting their collections with DVD in 2021. I mean, I don't want to stop anyone from starting a physical collection. I just think that if you're going to be starting a physical collection, you might want to start a little higher, because if you're fine with DVD now, that's fine, but you may not be fine with DVD in like 10 years. And that's another reason why I do collect films, because a lot of times 10, 15 years later, I will revisit these movies and I want them to look as good as possible. So I want to give another example of the progression of like DVD to Blu-ray. And let me find it here. So this, you guys, most of you probably have never heard of this movie. This is Flash Gordon. It came out in 1980. It is a very cheesy, kind of like, I would say low budget looking sci-fi movie from a long time ago. And it's got cheesy dialogue. And it is actually one of the coolest movies you can ever watch. I once played this movie at work and everyone was staring at the TV. They were like, what the hell is this movie? It is a crazy, wacky sci-fi movie. I recommend watching it. Just have a good sense of it. And by the way, the entire soundtrack is done by Queen. So this is the DVD of it from a few years back, and it has artwork by a really famous comic artist, Alex Jones. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to keep this copy, because this is really nice artwork on it. Oh, and it actually has some collector's cards that were inside with the disc of the villain of the film, and another one of the villain of the film. I believe all these are by Alex Ross as well. And then that's the DVD of it. So I remember when this movie came out on DVD, this was not the first edition to come out. They had a DVD that was released originally. I don't have the date for it, but it didn't have a very good picture. And I didn't buy it because I was like, this is pretty much like a Laserdisc. It's not worth the money. When this one came out, this one had much improved picture. It had what we call anamorphic widescreen, which is a much longer conversation I'll put in another video and describe what that is. So let me show you the Blu-ray for it. So eventually it came out on Blu-ray in the US. So when this came out, I got it. And of course, like I said before, the main advantages that we got out of it was we got better image quality and better sound. So when you watch this on a larger screen, it looks a lot better than the DVD. So here's the back of it. Pretty simple, just a single disc. Big improvement over the DVD. But last year, they did Flash Gordon 4K. So one of the really cool things about 4K for older movies is older movies are shot on film. A lot of people don't know this. You think it's called film, you think people would know this, but they don't. So film had a higher resolution to begin with, and it could be scanned digitally into 4K. So a lot of the newer movies are shot digitally. So because it's easier to get a lot of the special effects done, they usually downgrade the image to 2K. So that way they can render all the effects in the computer a lot faster. So a lot of the newer movies, the max resolution you can get is 2K. But if you have an old movie that was shot back in the day on film, you could scan that at 4K, and it looks amazing on 4K displays. It looks like they were just shot yesterday. So they went back and they did Flash Gordon 4K. So what I got was the special edition of Flash Gordon 4K, which basically had this new artwork. And I think this artwork, if it was done by an artist named Matt Ferguson. He does a lot of artwork. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm pretty sure I got his name right. Actually, it's on the back here. No, it's not on the back here. Pretty sure it's Matt Ferguson. But this copy looks amazing. One of the things about transferring this movie to 4K that I read is a lot of the flying in the film is done on wires, and the resolution is so good on this copy that you could see the wires too clearly. So they actually went back in and they digitally removed all the wires. I didn't notice it, wasn't a big deal, it's fine. So when you open this up, this was an UK import. You couldn't get this in the US. And you open it up here and you get this nice artwork of some of the villains in the film. You get a copy of the movie in 4K, get a copy of it on Blu-ray. Oh. I will do a more extensive video on this copy so you guys can see it a little better. Had a little patch in here and had a nice booklet, and it had some more art with the Alex Jones art on it. So really nice edition. I couldn't pass it up. So I got that last year. Now, after I pre-ordered that set, they decided they wanted to do an American release. So I was like, the American release had different items inside of it than the UK one did. So the decision was, am I going to get the American one or am I going to get the US one? So I got them both. So this is the US one done by Arrow Video. It has the same transfer, the video that the UK one did, but it has some different swag items. Swag is basically if they throw in like little extras in the packaging, like a poster or that little iron-on patch that I showed you. I'm usually not a big person in swag. It's just I was really excited about the release. I do this thing where like I said I'm not gonna get 2 copies, and I end up getting 2 copies. So it's done. This is it. It's here. So I actually like the artwork on the UK copy a lot better. This is not bad artwork, but that artwork is much better. So one thing I did not talk about for formats. So one of the things that I am a big buyer of are steelbooks. And a lot of you are probably wondering what steelbooks are. So steelbooks are basically movies that are in metal packaging. So a lot of times they can have different artwork inside, and they look really nice on the shelf because they have a spine. If you can see it, you can have like a little spine, so on your shelf you can see, you know, what each movie is. So I'm probably going to end up putting my shelf here, and I'm going to start with a lot of my steelbooks and have them facing out for future videos. And oh yeah, this is the 3rd copy of Flash Gordon. I did steelbook, and I was like, you know, I want the steelbook, and I got it. So I never had a steelbook for Flash Gordon. They actually did a US steelbook as well, but I didn't get it because they did a US steelbook of like the same Blu-ray that's already available, and I don't know why they did that. So, but it sold out. Once it went on sale, I thought about getting it, and it sold out. So apparently there were people out there that definitely wanted it. So here's a couple of other examples of steelbooks. This is Speed on 4K. This came out a few weeks ago. One thing that's really stood out about steelbooks recently is that more people are buying physical media lately. And the regular slipcover copies have been selling out, but then Best Buy having their steelbooks still in stock because less people want to buy them, because they tend to be about $5 more. So whenever one comes out, I have to decide, is it worth the extra $5 or not? And I go from there. Here's another example. This is Do the Right Thing on Steelbook. I haven't opened this one yet. I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid, but it came out in 4K, and I didn't have any Spike Lee films on Blu-ray yet. So I was like, that's a good one to start with. So this is A Quiet Place on 4K. So reason I wanted to show this particular disc is because one thing that I look for with steelbooks that I really like are embossing or debossing. So this one, you can probably see how it's got the scratch marks on the disc. So these are actually indented into the metal. So I like it when they actually put more time and effort to make the steelbooks unique and put better art on them. So this is a movie that I bought on regular slipcover because there was no steelbook, and I hate it when they do this. So they released it on regular slipcover, and they did a steelbook at the time, but they made it regular Blu-ray only. And I was like, I'm not gonna buy that movie on Blu-ray. If I'm gonna get it, I wanna have it on 4K. So I got the slipcover for the 4K. Then a few months later, they come out with a 4K copy that is in a steelbook, same steelbook that they did before. So I decided, fine. I actually still didn't get it. I actually just got this a few weeks ago because they lowered the price on it. And I pre-ordered the steelbook for the second one, and I want to be able to have the first and second one on my shelf. So I'll go for there. So I'm going to go ahead and unbox this one on camera because apparently I heard unboxings on YouTube are popular. So let's do my first unboxing. So let's go ahead and unwrap it. Okay, so this on the back is what we call a J card. The J card, it goes on the back of the steelbook, so that way you can read the description of what the movie's about, has the information about digital copies and so forth. And I'm always conflicted of whether or not I want to keep these with the movies or keep them separately, because it covers up the back artwork on the steelbook. So that's something that I haven't really made a firm decision on yet. So one thing I did forget to mention is, like, all these movies, usually Blu-rays and 4Ks, they come with digital copies. So that's another reason why I think they have a better value of buying the movie digitally, is because if you buy a physical copy, you get a physical and you get a digital. So if there's a situation where you want to watch the movie again and you don't have access to your physical copy, or it's more convenient to watch a digital, you have both, versus just buying digital and that's all you have. I saw a video of someone speaking about how they got rid of all of their physical copies and they just do digital, and they had to do that out of necessity because they didn't have the space for the physical copies anymore. And one of the things they said was they actually regretted it and they wish they could have kept their physical copies because of the limitations of when they could watch them, if their internet was working. And also there's some versions of movies that Flash Gordon is actually a really good example. The digital copies for Flash Gordon are only available in HD. They're not available in 4K. Studio Canal is what released the copy in the UK. It looks like they have exclusive rights to the 4K overseas, and then Arrow Video has exclusive rights to the 4K in the US. But any digital copies you see, they're only going to be the HD versions, and that's it. So there's a digital copy inside the packaging, and when you open it up, you got both discs in here. So the other thing I like about steelbooks is that you get artwork, if you're lucky, inside. So a lot of times you open it up and they have artwork that expands inside. So honestly, let me get a little closer to the camera here. This is not great artwork. A lot of times they'll have an image from the actual movie inside of here, but at least there's something. Fast and Furious steelbooks, which I'll do a video on later, they have no artwork inside at all. It's like really disappointing and terrible. But here's the front of it with the spine, and the back. If they hear you, they hunt you. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with that steelbook. That digital copy I'm gonna give to a friend because I don't need it on digital. And now I have a steelbook to go in my second one, and maybe possibly even a third one. I heard there's a rumor they're gonna do a third one. So that's my description of physical media copies. One thing I almost forgot to mention as well is 4K discs can be played on the new Xbox Series X. They can also be played on the Xbox One, and they can also be played on the PlayStation 5. So if you're lucky enough to be the few individuals that have a PlayStation 5, you have a 4K player. So just keep that in mind if you want to start a physical collection. I sometimes talk to people that don't have physical collections and they love movies and they're tempted to start. It's a good time to get into it. A lot of people say that physical media is dying. There are less people buying physical media than like 15, 20 years ago, but a lot of movies are coming out. And I think a lot of movies are coming out mainly because they know that eventually it's going to be all streaming. And if they're going to sell these films, now's the time to sell them. And I think that it's a really good time to get high resolutions of your favorite films. So that's my description of physical media. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on the video. Another thing I forgot to mention, lots of things, is if you can comment on the video, that's greatly helpful. Please like and subscribe if you want. And there's a little bell icon. If you can hit the bell, that lets YouTube know when I make new videos. So thanks again. You all have a pleasant evening.